All right. Hello, White Sox fans. It is our Ladies Night podcast. It is number 6, and we took a tad bit of a hiatus. We are some busy ladies, so we had kind of a lot going on this summer, and the Sox are so bad there wasn't really a whole lot of things to talk about other than to bitch and complain constantly. So, but we're back because, of course, we enjoy each other's company, and we do need to bitch and complain because it has really gotten bad. So tonight I'm excited to have my ladies with me, and we have Allie and Christina and Hannah. And so we're going to kind of buzz through a few topics here, and we're going to kick it off with talking about the suck because let's just get it out of the way. It's gotten historically sucky as we're on our 17th straight loss, but we can't win or we can't lose tonight, Thursday, as we're recording this because we don't play. So there we go. But by next week, if you haven't yet, go check out Brett Valentini's article over at Southside Sox on the historic badness. But as early as next week, we could actually, as a franchise, fall below 500 overall for the first time in since the 40s, which is insane. So I don't know. I'm just going to throw it out. Somebody jump in. Tell me what you're thinking, what you've been doing this last month. Have you been watching? Do you cover your eyes? Do you hold your nose? What's going on?
I never want to win a game again. Ever. Like, I honestly, this is so much more fun than trying to win. I love this. And I am being only partly sarcastic. Like, this is just, yeah, it's incredible. I didn't realize it could get this bad. And here we are. So I'd love to lose 130 games. I think that breaking records, even bad ones, is fun. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm like almost in the same wavelength where it's kind of just like, well, if we're going to be historic, at least we're going to be historic at something. Like, we're going to be bad. This is the type of entertainment we're getting this year. And it's like a shame. And we kind of were talking about this earlier, Allie and myself, and we were just like, there's so many games that in saves that they've blown, just like saves alone would put them at like 50 something wins, which wouldn't not even be bad, like at all. And then if you factor in all the ones that they were winning and lost, it's just like it's so miserable to watch. Like, to answer your question, I have not been watching like nearly as much as I normally do. I like watch a little bit here and there, like, oh, Crochet's pitching tonight. I'll watch a few innings of this, or like pop in, while I'm cooking dinner or something. And then I'm just like, okay, I've had enough. Like, is it time to watch something on Netflix or whatever? Because like it's the same old song and dance every single time. Can't trust them with the lead. Like, you're going in. It could be the ninth inning. Doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's just like a roller coaster for them. And just the way that the coaches, like the way Grafal talks about the players and just talks in general, makes me want to like bash my head against the wall. And Chris Getz, the way he talks about the players and the trades and just like misses that they've had, it's just like nails on a chalkboard. Like, I think they just need to be like, yeah, we suck and that's where we're going to be. Instead, it's like just trying to feed bullshit that's not there. And yeah, I'm just kind of over it. Like, is the season over? I'm with Allie. Like, how far can we get the win streak up? I made a joke the other day that was like, we lost 16 in a row. Wow, the losing streak can now get a driver's license. That's amazing. Like, how far could we take this? It's so wild.
It's like embracing the suck, right? Like, I
Just
mean,
gotta embrace it.
yeah, at this point, what else are you gonna do? You just have to ride the wave of the suck, and it is. I mean, it is kind of funny. It's very sad, but it is kind of funny when you're watching, like you said, with the lead and one of the young guys pitching have done pretty well, and you're like, oh, can they just pull it out for him? And then they blow it, and you're like, of course they blew it. Like,
Right. And
there's
they
no.
put John Brebbia in with 3-run lead, and that goes away in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, I agree. I can't tell you the last time I've sat down and watched a game, and for me, that's really sad because as a fan, I was somebody for all 162 games, even last year probably in a 100 loss season, and the years before that, especially 2021, even 2022, watched every single game. Penciled it into my schedule, penciled it into my day. And now there's times where like I'm downstairs with my dad and he's like, "What's the score?" I'm like, "The score of what?" He's like, "The Sox game." I'm like, "I didn't even think about that. It hasn't even became a thought in my mind. Like, oh, they're playing." Like I'm like, "Oh yeah," like I forget they're playing. That could be because I'm busy, but I don't think it's because of that. It obviously is because of this situation, and it takes me back to the podcast we did right before the season starts, and we were making our season predictions, whatever. And I specifically remember saying that I didn't think at that point that like it could get much more rock bottom. I had thought that the rock bottom was last year. And looking back, it's insane because I thought at the beginning of this year that like it could only go up from there. I never ever would have like envisioned this actually happening. Um and the fact that it's happening in real time and just it makes me more, I guess I'd say, more sad. Like I am angry, but I think it's more of a sad feeling at this point because it's like this is genuinely so sad. Like it's just sad. And it's just sad how it got to this point. It's sad to see everybody not pan out. It's sad to see that this team right now is supposed to be in a contention window. It's just all very sad. It's sad how it's ran. It's sad how our manager acts. It's sad that we're the laughing stock of the league. And that's kind of the point, you know. I'm taking it very personally, I guess, because you know when you're a lifelong diehard, that's all you really can do. I mean, it's gotten to a point where it's genuinely making people sad and upset, and it should, because that's how you know you're a real fan. But it's just, yeah, it's a lot. I'm completely obviously disconnected, and I just can't wait for like the next sport to come on. Like I used to count down the days until the season started, and now I'm counting down the days until it ends. Like it's sad. So I think that that's where I'm at with it, and I could talk about it for hours, but I'll spare you.
It just feels hopeless. It's like, like what is even going to come of this? You know what I mean? They just made terrible trades. Like, what are we getting out of that? Nothing. I'm with you. It is sad.
And yeah, like to chime in on, you said, you know, we're the laughing stock, and in our house here, we cut the cable cord and we now have Fubo, and so we're Fubu, however you say it. I'm too old to know how you say it, but we have all these sports channels now, and so my son, who's 18, is literally watching like every baseball team play at, like, we can watch like 4 games at a time, and then you can have the MLB network on and everything. And so he's just watching a lot of baseball, and how everybody is saying how pathetic we are. Like, you know, I mean, that to me is really sad. Like when you have become, you know, whether it's on social media or network TV or whatever, when people are talking about your franchise and are like, what are they doing? Like, what did they do with this trades? What are they still doing with having this manager? I mean, it's just, it gets to the point where you're sad, but you're also like embarrassed. Like, I don't even want to wear my whites. I'm wearing my White Sox t-shirt today on the podcast, but I don't want to wear it in public because whenever I do, I went to a family reunion like 2 weeks ago, and people, you know that I blog and do this kind of stuff, and they were just like, "Oh my God, what is wrong with your baseball team?" And you're just like, want to like crawl up in a corner and because what do you say? Like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're just horrible.
Well, you know when people like get into like fights like on Twitter or whatever, and they're like, "Go touch grass." I've touched a lot of grass this summer. Like, it's incredible when you choose to ignore what's happening, how much happier you can be if you just choose to look away from the dumpster fire that is the Chicago White Sox. Like, my mental health has just been significantly better by not paying attention to what's going on. Also, it's incredibly impressive that Pedro Grifol and Chris Getz and all of these new folks still have jobs. You know, they should count their blessings. I hope that they are greeting Jerry Reinsdorf with double cheek kisses every time that they see him, because wow.
No, you're completely right, and that takes me to another mini rant about that. But I just don't understand, like, as a owner or as anybody, how you can see this record and look at this and see all of this that's going on and have the same manager and have the same GM. I don't understand how any owner and anybody can sit here and watch it happen and let it get this bad. Like, it's one thing to be bad, but to be this historically bad and not do anything about it, I guarantee you at least 28 of the other teams, Pedro would have been gone within the first 3-22 stretch. And they probably even before that, like, it's just not acceptable. And the fact that we are just so used to this type of just everything that we're just like, oh yeah, this is normal. Like, I dare other fans to spend a day, besides A's fans, like, okay, and Angels fans, maybe they're down there with us, but I don't want to hear any other fandom complain about anything ever again in front of me, because what is happening right now is just brutal and disrespectful to the fans. It blows my mind. And it's just like, it's like, when like you're so like a favorite celebrity or something does something and you're like, how can I even defend them anymore? It's like, how can I even continue to support them? It's just hard. It's like, I just don't understand how it's acceptable. And I don't understand how, like, I just wish someone could step in and be like, hello, like, wake up, like, we got to do something. And it just doesn't seem like that's there. And I just don't understand why. I mean, I know why, but
you bring up a good point too about like, it's disrespectful to the fans, but I also like, these players are not coming in and day out and wanting to be bad at baseball and wanting to lose all of these games. And at some point, like, when leadership is that bad, you also have to consider, like, it's also incredibly disrespectful to the entire clubhouse. Like,
Yeah.
Those players are coming in and they're wanting to put their best foot forward. And I don't doubt that those, like, John Brebbia is not walking into a game with a 3-run lead, like, wanting to blow a lead, or like, they're not, and on top of it too, like, they're being asked day in and day out, like, oh, how do you feel about what's, this thing that's happening, or like this rumor that's happening. And like, I can only imagine that, like, eventually that's going to take a toll on your mental health and like affecting the game that you're playing at this high level, because you're constantly being asked about like the culture of the clubhouse or all of these things, like, especially in a time where that you're dumping a lot of people like Garrett Crochet, like being asked about like all of the trade rumors and stuff. And then like some of his camp stuff being like, not only is it incredibly disrespectful to us as like, we want to see a good product on the field, but like, I can't help but feel that like the players are also being disrespected at the same time.
100%, because like they're not even getting set up for success in the slightest. They don't have good coaches. They don't have freaking analytics, which is like because of the management. The management is so bad that it rots itself from the inside out. And then it's like, once it gets to the players, like these young kids come up and they show so much promise, in the minors and everything. And then they come up and they're like, just not great. Like, and we don't have the tools to make them better. Then we ship them off and then immediately to a team like the Dodgers, who is actually going to turn that player around. Or like, I mean, look at the Tampa Bay Rays. Like, they never really have any like superstars, yet they're always winning, So it's like, it's just like, it's pathetic. It really is. And I wanted to go back to like what Hannah was saying, because it's like so funny when you hear like other fans of teams, like when they're complaining about their teams. Like, there was Braves fans that were like complaining that this is like one of the worst seasons that they've had to deal with. And it's like, my dude, you are 58-49, battling, you're in the running for first, like, you're gonna make the wild card. Like, what do you mean this is the worst season? Like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even have 30 freaking wins. For us, a good season at this point would be 100 losses like last year. And we're trying to break a record for the most losses. And it's just like, what the hell are we doing? And is anything like looking at next year with the roster that we have? And like, sure, there's the off season that they can like make trades, but do I trust anyone in this front office to make a good trade or to find good players? Like, we have good players in our minor league system, but what's going to happen, like what keeps happening, is they're going to come up and then they're going to end up falling flat because we don't have any type of management in the major league level or like better ways to develop players. Mm-hmm. And it's so frustrating because it's just like, when I look at the team, I just feel like we're going to suck for the next 2 to 4 years. You know what I mean? And again, and like you said, this was supposed to be the contention window. Like, oh man, we're going to win in 2021, 2022. We're going to be battling still in 2024. And then look, like everybody ended up sucking or injured. And then instead of trying to figure the problems out of why these players suck and are injured. We just blame the players, like freaking NBC Sports Chicago being happy that Eloy was gone. Like, just everything about the organization is so frustrating. Like, you think he wanted to be hurt? Like, we just talked about this. You know what I mean? Like, no, he didn't want to be hurt. And like when he was playing pretty well within reason. And it's just like, he wanted to be there. I just don't understand the way that anyone around the organization talks about them, deals with them. Like, it's like they're living in their own little fever dream that it's really not that bad and things are going to be good. But like, yeah, a real team would have fired Pedro Grifol halfway through last year, probably. Like,
so I'm going to throw that hot potato question out to you guys. We didn't really kind of talk about that one ahead of time, but so and we've kind of heard a few rumblings. So if Pedro is gone tomorrow or gone next week, how does that change things for you? Like, how are you feeling as a fan if that happens?
It doesn't change anything. Like, nothing is going to be solved within this organization until Jerry Reinsdorf turns the team over to someone else. Like, it is going to continue to be worse because Jerry gives just enough of a shit to like continue to have a hand in things, but like not make good decisions. And as long as he is the one driving things and as long as he is the one making decisions about hiring as it pertains to a GM or executive staff, a manager, coaching staff, all of that stuff, like nothing is going to change. At this point, this is a cultural, like it is a deep systemic cultural issue within the organization. And it literally starts at the top. And so until he's gone, I have no faith that like this is turning around. And whether that's he sells the team or quite literally he dies, like I have no idea. So it looks like Melissa just fell off, but we can keep going. Hannah.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I was thinking about the culture specifically, and it's like how many guys are going to come out and basically flat out almost say that it was a cultural issue, right? Like it reminds me, it didn't even start with Liam Hendriks, but when Liam Hendriks, who was just beloved here, like such a good guy, like went through so much. And he wanted to come here in the first place because he thought we could win a World Series and all of this. When he comes out publicly and says that there's a culture problem, when, you know, people say that about like with the Tim Anderson situation, he had a locker room by himself and people were phasing him out. When like people continuously, Paul DeJong made a comment about something recently, like after he got traded, like, oh, it made me realize like I had to kind of fend for myself, something like that, something along the lines of him, you know, subtly saying the organization isn't serious and the clubhouse isn't serious. That's not going to be changed until it changes at the top. And I mean, I've just kind of given up hope. Like, at least it would be a step in the right direction, but that's giving them too much credit because they got here in the first place if they fire Grifol, but they're just going to hire another person that's not going to, you know, like they're not going to make a serious hire. And that's the whole problem. And that's where this all stems. So I think it's just at this point, I mean, for what I know, most of the fans are like, they're disconnected. Like they're out of it. Like I have no interest in being positive at all. And coming from me, that sucks because I have always been like super positive about this team, even in 2022, even in the beginning of 2023. It took a lot for me to get to this point, for me to finally crack. And now that I'm here, it's kind of just like, it's just going. Like, I don't trust them anymore. You know, it's quite literally like almost ruined my love for the game that I've had my entire life. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's so sad to see. And it's just like, I've had to disconnect myself or else like it genuinely would like affect my mental health. Like it's sad. Like that, it's just very personal to me. And I think that a lot of fans, like it is the same way. I mean, I see it every day. I see it on social media. I see how people are acting the same way. But yeah.
Yeah. Big disappointment. I'm with you. It's like the least I've ever watched baseball, I think, in a season, just in general, because like, you know, the team that we have the most access to watching and love to watch are just so horrible. And then it's like, on the other hand, the league makes it so hard to watch. And it's like, it's so many things. Like the White Sox, I'm with Al. I think there's nothing that's going to get nothing is going to get better until they make a lot of huge organizational changes or the team is sold or both, ideally. And I just, until something like that happens, I don't have that much hope, there's players to get excited about sort of and stuff. But it's when you know, they're going to just come up here to this shithole, literally it's just a nightmare up here. You just are that, I want the best for them, and I feel like the best for them is not the Chicago White Sox, but this is the team that I grew up loving and playing. So it's it's such a pain. What about you, Melissa? What is your take?
Yeah, I'm with Allie. I could basically exactly what you said. It's systemic, and it would just be a token move at this point to get rid of Grifol, because he's not the greatest leader, obviously, at all. And he just doesn't have a personality and whatever, but he was also handed a totally shitty hand. Here, you're going to be expected to, do all these great things with this team of just nothing that I've given you. And so, I just think that to fire him, it may, the more casual fans be like, oh, yay, they're doing something. Yeah. But until our 80-plus-year-old owner realizes that his time has passed, and, kind of tying this back to the beginning of mentioning Brett's article, that, for the first time since the 1940s as a franchise to be under 500 when you've been around for 124 years, that's bad, folks. 124 years, and only one other time in your history have you been truly, not even a 500 team. And I think Brett kind of did the math, and at this point, it would take us until 2031 to dig out of the hole. That's not just a few bad years. I mean, that is significantly bad, that we can't even think for another 6-7 years that we can actually, as a franchise, hold our head high and be we're not totally sucky. And I think in order for everything to turn around, it just needs to be flipped. The script needs to be flipped, and the house needs to be cleaned. And I mean, why can't Jerry take a nod from Joe Biden and be look,
I'm too old. Goodbye.
Yes, I'm too old. I'm handing over the baton to the young people.
For the love of God. The problem is the young people is Chris Getz. Oh my God. The young people is fucking Chris Getz.
To be fair though, Jerry has shown us who he is always. At the end of the day, I a couple of weeks, or maybe it was last week, I saw a quote resurfacing from him about how being in second place is always the best, because you get your fans on the hook, and they're oh, we're so close, blah blah blah, which just goes to show me that Jerry's never been in a winning championship mindset to begin with. Jerry's always cared about making a buck and not cared about actually bringing a championship to the city of Chicago. He had the 90s with the Bulls, he had 05 with the White Sox, and that's enough for him. And now he just cares about filling his pockets and filling other people's pockets. And so that's really disappointing too. And it just, that frustrates me, I think, even more, because that's why I continue to not have hope, because, not to harp on the past, but there are situations almost getting Bryce Harper, almost having Manny Machado, or having, I just blanked on his name all of a sudden, Fernando Tatis Jr., in our Marcus Semien. There are all of these situations where we were so close to having these stars within our reach here in Chicago, and not being willing to put another buck forward because it was going to save you some money, but not bring a championship home, just is so disappointing. And it's just I hate the practices here. It really makes you so disillusioned, where the fandom is so ingrained in you that you are still I would still consider myself a fan, but it makes me want to go watch other baseball. I want to go, I'll go to Wrigley at this point. Brett's going to kill me for saying that, but I know they're bad, but like it's better than you know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. That's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to like kind of touch on another point of that, another side of that, because I've been editing videos and like looking at that from a lot of points of views of people. Chicago is the third biggest city in the United States. We are a big market team. Why is this organization and the Cubs, honestly, even the Cubs as well, why are we being run like a small market organization? Why are we not being aggressive and going and getting stars? Like Chicago should be a big destination for these players. And I don't care if we have two teams, the fans, I will say one thing I've been very surprised on this year. You with a lot of like smaller market teams, if any team was this bad, they would not have as much attendance as we are having. I've been pleasantly surprised with, I mean, even getting like, we got like 15,000 the other night against the Royals on a random weekday. That's a lot for a team that's has 27 wins in August. Like, I think that like the fans are kind of still showing up, and you know that wouldn't happen in a lot of places. And I think that you know, we should have the mindset of being a big city team. Even though there's two teams, we still have enough fans in this giant population of Chicago with millions of people to outnumber half of the markets in MLB.
I mean, if the Mets and the Yankees can do it, the Cubs and the White Sox can do it.
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Even from a business perspective, it's so bad because it's like if you're winning, you know what you're going to get more of? Money, because people are going to freaking spend it. They're going to go and watch. You're going to have playoff appearances. So like you can charge an insane amount of money these days because that's just how it is. And like I'm an idiot and I'm going to pay it. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like the whole second place thing is so freaking stupid. And I get it to an extent from his psychotic point of view. Like, but oh my God, winning is so much better. Like, you know, and he lucked into winning 6 championships with Jordan because he didn't even want him there in the first place. And like, they lucked in a championship in 05, essentially. Like the team just became dominant, and like that team was kind of rare too. I mean, just the way they played and the way that they swept the postseason out like that, pretty much. Like Jerry has no idea what he's doing. Like he does because he's made billions of dollars, but he also is just like, why are you not just going to ride off in the sunset with your billions of dollars and like let someone else take the heat? Like you don't need to be the blame and the bad guy anymore. Like I would have so much more respect for you if like tomorrow you were like, you know what? Yeah, my time here is done. This is not going well. I'm going to sell the team. And like, great. Thank you, Jerry. Like, you know what I mean? Immediately I would start to like I would feel some sort of sense of hope. But until anything like that happens, like you guys all said, firing Grifol doesn't do anything. Like nothing changes the whole thing. And you know what I really want to is like you guys were talking about like players talking about how it's just been a shit show there. Like I need Tommy Pham to get on a mic yesterday. Like what are we doing here? Because I just know that he has shit to talk because that's how he is.
Someone needs to do a documentary, right? Like there's gotta be a documentary crew out there where they can interview, do these tell all. Like I want the 2021, 2022 teams interviewed about the breakdown that happened between, you know what I mean? Like
that's a study on the way that they've declined. Like the organization was in, like, look at 2021, like the way that even just like that one playoff game gave everyone like this little taste and so much a sense of hope. And we're like, we can do this again. Like that was so fun. And it was so terrible after that. Like it was terrible. And it's crazy. Like the decline of the White Sox from 2020 to 2024, like literally needs to be studied by like doctors, like as someone, like there needs to be a cultural study from the inside out. Like I need to hear all the tea. And that's the problem too, is like all these players leave and most of them keep their mouths shut. And it's like, we just want to know, what is it actually like in there? Because it's got to be terrible. Like,
well, if we're going to be not good again in like 2031, that would be like 10-ish years. So we can like make a date for all of us to like do a documentary and all the players will be retired by then. And we can come and we can make a really cool documentary about it because it would make a fascinating like sociological study of like what in the hell happened.
I mean, we've never seen anything like this ever. No. And it's insane to me because that 2021 year, like, we weren't in the shadow of the Cubs. Like, we were everywhere. I have never
They
seen
were in ours.
I've never seen so much White Sox stuff out and about. I saw it at restaurants, people's cars. I was in Florida and California I saw people with White Sox jerseys on. Like, we are not a small team. Like, when we are good, people show out and they show up and the money is there. I spent $170 on that Game 3 Leary Garcia homer to go and sit there by myself. I
Same.
spent that money. Like, it was insane. People were everywhere. Like, there was a lot of fans, and I don't get how that doesn't motivate you. Like, what is enjoyable about where you're at now when you could have had all of that? Like, if that's what Jerry likes, if Jerry likes the publicity and he likes the money, at least, like, we gotta try and, like, gaslight him into thinking that, like, you just gotta be, you can get that back. This is just what you have to do. That's really the only way to do it. And it's just like, yeah, they were finally, like, being talked about, more than the Cubs, and putting that whole theory to rest that, like, nobody cares about the White Sox and they're irrelevant, because we weren't that year. Like, even outside of Chicago, and I live on the freaking north side, and I saw more Sox stuff and nobody was talking about the Cubs. Like, I had random people that never watched baseball in their life be like, I'm going to a Sox game. Like, that was the place to be that summer, and it's embarrassing. Like, my mom, who doesn't even care about baseball, doesn't even know anything, she literally said the other day, she was like, yeah, it's embarrassing. Like, if I go to a game, I don't tell my friends that I'm going. And I'm like, you're saying that? Oh my God, we've gotten bad. If you're saying that, like, you've never said anything about them. If you're embarrassed, that's how I truly know. I was like, oh wow, that just opened my eyes, like, so much.
I live like 5 blocks from the stadium. I can count on one hand, maybe the start of a second, how many games I've been to this season. Like, I live probably the most the stadium is incredibly accessible for me, and I am avoiding it like the plague. Like, that should tell you a lot, because I'm not the only one in the neighborhood, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've turned down free tickets, so yeah.
I always love those memes that's like, oh no, someone broke into my car and, like, stole my White Sox, or left like 4 more or something like that. It's so funny, and it's just like, no one wants to go. Like, you can get a ticket for like $6 again. That's the only thing that's, like, kind of cool.
$1.
My mom
$1.
My mom called me yesterday and told me that apparently they've closed off the 500 level. You can only sit in the lower levels now. They're like, that's how bad attendance has been.
Is this Tampa Bay? What are we doing?
So
Worse.
I don't know if that's true. I'm gonna just spread that rumor.
I mean, we'll check and see if it looks closed.
That's what I was told today, is that they have closed off the 500 levels. So
that sounds so on brand, like, for the White Sox, like, so on brand. Okay, well, we did a good job of bitching for 30 minutes, girls. That was awesome. So we're going to take a quick break. So listen to whatever they're going to sell you, and we'll be back here in a second. All right. Welcome back to our Ladies Night podcast. So we're going to, it's hard to be hopeful. I mean, it just is, but we're going to try really hard for a couple of minutes. Is there anyone of the gazillion new people that we have seen that is impressing any of you at all? Like, there's a small glimmer of hope where you like how they're performing offensively, or you like what you're seeing defensively or in the pitching side. Is there anybody out there? I feel like an echo. Anyone?
Going.
Yeah, my initial thought there is Drew Thorpe. I know he's had a rough, like, last 2 outings, and his ERA is kind of up there now, but I've been a little surprised. Like, I said this way earlier in the season. I was like, if we're gonna suck, we might as well pull up our young guys and give them, like, major league experience. We know we're gonna be losing games. You might as well give them reps. And I think Drew Thorpe, Jonathan Cannon, like some of those younger guys who have been in the system, have really like shown some promise in certain aspects. Like obviously it's not perfect. And when you're not really like, you know, the downside of that is when you're not confident about the defense behind you, I think that does start to affect your pitching performance as well. Like you're trying to be perfect. And for a young guy who's just coming up in the league, trying to be perfect on top of being a young pitcher, like just pitching against major league pitching doesn't always seem like a good recipe, which is why they're getting nailed sometimes. Like Drew Thorpe's, 2 starts ago, 8 runs in 0.2 innings against the Mariners. Granted, it's the Mariners. So yeah, I think I've also been surprised too that we've pulled up a lot of guys that have like skipped AAA. Like we're just pulling people immediately up from Birmingham, which has been interesting because I'm pretty sure that we did that with Thorpe. And so to not have AAA experience and to come up and be dominant he's had quite a few dominant starts. I think that gives me a little bit of like hope from a pitching perspective at least. But starting pitching has been, I feel like, the least of the concern for the clubhouse this year, which is
ironically,
Thorpe has had 5 quality starts out of a rookie. That's amazing.
Yep.
So, you know, go ahead and let him take his lumps.
Yeah.
Now
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, and just try to figure it out, and I'm okay with that. The only, to kind of tie it back when we were talking about Pedro, that would be the only reason why I would be excited to see Pedro gone, is because I don't feel like he is what the young guys need. So if we are going to be here and we are going to give all of these guys a chance to just play it out and work out the difficult parts and stuff, is get somebody who is going to be good with the young guys in here, and let's just get this ball rolling.
Definitely. I think it's ridiculous when we play like veterans that don't need to be playing, really. Like Martin Maldonado is a great example off the top of the head, but it's like you have all these other young guys that keep getting pulled up. And it is interesting too that some of them don't go to AAA. I don't really understand how they make that call and stuff, because like, don't you want to let them like cook in the minors a little bit longer? Like, I don't know, but I was going to say Drew Thorpe too, because of the same reasons you said. I think that one outlier start was hopefully an outlier. I mean, that was just like one of those games that is just gets away from you and gets out of hand in the blink of an eye, and there's not really much you could do about it after that. And like, he's a baby still in the league. Like Carlos Rodon just had like 5 or 6 terrible starts in a row. You know what I mean? And like, is still starting every 5 days for the Yankees, like, because they know that there's that potential there. So, you know, I'm not relating him to Carlos Rodon, but like ideally he can just kind of like develop. And then from a position player standpoint, I mean, it's kind of slim pickings. So I put Corey Julks. He's been playing in the outfield a little bit. He has the 4th highest OPS, definitely not as many at bats, but like, it just tells you that there's not really anyone above them that is like, the first one is Yohan Moncada, and that guy played like 10 games. Like, so he's not really a good example there. And then, you know, you have Paul DeJong, and he's got traded to a different team that's actually contending. And so it's like, there's not many players that are producing any sort of numbers right now. So, you know, 50, 60 at bats or whatever it is, like, you know, I'll take that as like being a little bit impressed, especially for coming up, not having really much experience and playing for a terrible team.
Yeah, the only person I guess I could say is Jonathan Cannon. I mean,
yeah,
Drew Thorpe as well, but like what stands out to me is Jonathan Cannon, because I don't really think going into the year anyone really expected him to be this good. You know, that what he had, like a 1-hitter against the Astros whenever it was. And I remember at the beginning of the year, I was one of the people that said that I thought that the starting pitching was going to be worse than the offense, which I don't know why I said that. I guess I've been pleasantly surprised with the starting pitching this year. Nobody, you know, knew what was going to happen, you know, throwing Crochet out there as a starter, and then he ended up being where he is, which has been huge and been great. But other than that, like, yeah, Drew Thorpe and Jonathan Cannon, and if, you know, that's a whole nother discussion with Crochet, but, you know, that's a solid few pitchers right there if you do decide to keep Crochet and move forward with that. And And then with obviously like the first rounder you got this year, and then like whoever's in the minors right now, it looks pretty stacked, I feel like. So I'm kind of shocked by that. But yeah, Jonathan Cannon definitely stood out to me the most, along with Thorpe. But that's really it. I don't even honestly, I don't even have a position player. I mean, if I was going to say a
They're
position
not
player,
good, so
no, there's nobody good enough that like I can say, oh, they've stood out this year and like excelled. I mean, like Corey Lee, but like how is Corey Lee the best position player? Like
Right.
genuinely, like I don't. That's why I'm saying I don't have an answer.
And it's funny that you said that, Hannah, because I remember, I think earlier in one of our earliest Ladies Night podcasts, I was talking about being impressed by Lee. And so I was like, I really haven't kind of like looked at his stats lately. I mean, he's slashing 213, 245, 358. That's not good. That's not good at all. I mean, for a backup catcher, maybe he does have an arm. So here's hoping that Caro is around the corner.
right.
Because clearly the way Lee started out didn't sustain that. So that's again, for backup, I'm fine with that, but that's not the kind of numbers I need to see out of my backstop. And on the offensive end, that's the part to me that is dire. Like, even Christina and I both do some minors coverage, and there are a couple of bats that are exciting, but not near the number of bats that we're going to need to turn this offense around. Because you can have great pitching, but you got to be able to score some runs. And
Exactly.
by some runs, I'm talking more than 2 or 3 a game, because you can't expect your pitchers to go out there every single time and only give up 1 or 2 runs. That's just too much to ask in the game, the way the game is played right now. So that's, to me, I couldn't even, I was trying to look at position players and I couldn't. Baldwin has unfortunately not done well since he's been up, and that could, Allie mentioned, people skipping. He's one of the ones that skipped and went from Birmingham, straight up, and he was on fire and he was doing great. And I can see kind of how that decision might have been made, but he is just, he's slashing 175, 214, 275 with a 489 OPS. Like, that's terrible. That's not even like, oh, well, no, that's terrible.
And like, it's a strange move too, because they're not bringing Colson Montgomery up because they want him to get experience and be ready. But it's like, okay, well, this guy plays the same position, and like, you could have your middle infield right there if you just let him like develop a little longer. What's the point of sending him up to fail if like we're not quite ready? And like, to your point, Melissa even said it, and like I notice it when I'm covering the minors, that sometimes like the Barons specifically too, like when they lose games, a lot of times they're close games, and same for winning, because it's like the run support, it's there, but it's like there's not anyone that's just going crazy all the time, especially now that Brooks Baldwin is gone off of Birmingham. Like, there's one less bat there, but like the Birmingham pitching is phenomenal. Like they have Kai Bush, they have Mason Adams, and like, well, Drew Thorpe was there, but he's not there now. And but it's like they actually have like those pieces and stuff. So like you said, I'm not worried about the starting pitching for right now, but we just bring these guys up and they're great, like Garrett Crochet, and then he's just going to end up being a trade piece. And like, for what? Because we're not good at making trades. So it's a circle of just like a big chaotic mess. It's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. And then you also talk about like needing bats and like power hitting and stuff. And for me, like, that's always where I'm like, okay, that's where a big free agent signing needs to come in. Like, we need to just make a couple of moves to get some power hitters in to the team via like the free agent market. But then, like, not to go back to our bitch session, but like,
we won't pay for
one, we're not going to pay them, and 2, nobody wants to come play here. Like, if you're a free agent and you have at least a decent market where you're entertaining a couple of teams, like the second the White Sox enter the chat, they're leaving the chat at the same time, because like, at least if I'm a professional player that I know that I can get a decent contract, like, I'm not entertaining the White Sox. So
they're on my no trade list, number 1.
Exactly. So I think like that's also where we're handcuffing ourselves, because we can't develop talent in the way that we need to, but then also like we've created a culture that like I am absolutely positive that Tommy Pham and Eric Fetty and Michael Kopech are going around, Liam Hendricks, like they're talking shit about the clubhouse cult. Like there's no way that they don't show up to their new team and like Clayton Kershaw's like, dude, what the heck is happening in Chicago?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, they're talking. So, you know, I think, yeah, that's where that's going to be a struggle for a time.
Yeah, because in order to, you can go out and sign a couple big bats, but you have to at least develop within your system some average major league players.
Right.
Like what those numbers I like rattled off to you, those are like not even average. Those are way below average. So, you know, you can sign a couple big free agent bats, but then if you're going to surround them with 7 players who can't hit above the Mendoza line, what difference does it make? You have to, and we don't develop hitters, and I don't understand why. Well, we do. It's a terrible system, but
I just don't understand how to develop anything, because like their whole process has been developing players, and these players that we're developing are going to be the players, you know, and then they end up not being able to do that because they don't know how to, and then we refuse to sign a player for enough money to make it enticing to come here. And then you're just in the same situation every, 5 years when the players don't pan out.
And the guy that was in charge of development is now in charge of the entire team.
Yay!
yes.
The leader in almost every major category on the offensive end right now is Andrew Vaughn. And it used to be Paul DeJong with home runs, but unfortunately,
18 bombs.
He's not on the team anymore. So the home run and RBI leader is Andrew Vaughn. You want to know how many home runs he has? 13, 48 RBIs, and he is the average leader, and he has a 232 average.
See, that's not even average. Like he's not even hitting 250.
No.
So,
232 and a 670 OPS and a 385 slugging percentage. And it's just insane that that's our best hitter and our leader in major categories. Because when you were thinking about offensive players and trying to name a standout, nobody would have said Andrew Vaughn. But in reality, he is the best on the team in a lot of categories. And it's like, that's the best that you're putting out there. That's embarrassing. That's not good. Like everybody should be able to at least name one star player, and usually that's Luis Robert, but he's been going out there looking like he's got to go somewhere else. Like he looks like he needs to go to dinner. Like he just does not want to be there. Like he is just swinging like he used to, where he just swings at everything. There's no energy there. There's nothing. He's supposed to be our star. He had it
like, I'm only here so I don't get fined. Like
that's literally what it's giving. It's giving, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. And it's just that what happens when you're a star player, when your guy of the future is performing like him. Like it's just top to bottom. There's always an issue, always an issue.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of issues, I don't know if we briefly want to talk about this or if we have time, but Garrett Crochet leaking that he wasn't going to be traded if he didn't get he wouldn't pitch in October if he didn't get an extension. He has been pitching very well this season. I will give him that. However, you literally just came back from Tommy John 2 seasons ago. What is this? Did he even start last year? I can't even remember at this point.
No.
This is your first full season as a starter. And you have said, A, you don't want to move to the bullpen. And B, you're not going to pitch in October unless you get an extension. Woof, he hates the White Sox.
Yeah, he screwed us over real bad there. I mean, now we're kind of stuck in no man's land because it's like, okay, well, now, we're not going to extend him because we don't spend money. And if he's specifically asking for money, we can count him out. Anytime money's involved, you can count the White Sox out. It's like there's not even a thought in my mind that Jerry Reinsdorf would say, hey, we want to build a team around you. How much money you want, we'll give it to you. And then he's going to end up walking away, and we're going to end up with nothing.
For me personally, I also, that just really rubs me the wrong way because it's you have no proven success. You have one season that you've been pitching decently well, but like that's something I feel like a guy says after like 3 or 4 seasons of like a 3.2 ERA, like, you know what I mean? Like content. I don't know. I just like, that's wild to me to be like, yeah, I've been starting for 1 season. I haven't even made it the full season. We're barely in August. And I like props to him, I guess, for being ballsy about wanting an extension because he wants to be locked down somewhere. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I just feel like he hasn't earned the right to like say something like that.
And you would think that an agent would rein that in. You know,
Right.
I can see as a young guy. I mean, you know, when you're young, it's just a different approach to life, right? And you kind of see yourself as maybe a little more grandiose than you are. And that's where you would think the people surrounding him would be like, hey, buddy, come on, let's rein it in a little bit and be a little more realistic, because he really kind of screwed himself. I mean, he could have went to a contender and gotten an extension without throwing this little tantrum thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, so now he's screwed because he's stuck on the White Sox and he's not going to a contender and he's not getting an extension. He's not getting any of those things. So I kind of put a lot of that on whoever is advising him as a young person.
Also, just like, how did that get out? Like, who, like, honestly, like, who snitched? Like,
yeah.
He's got to get some better friends.
Well, I also think it kind of like unintentionally screwed us over with the draft, because I think that everybody was saying like Crochet is gone. So because we thought he was going to be traded and gone before all this happened, we, you know, draft at number 5, like a pretty decent pick, like another left-handed pitcher instead of, you know, I don't know, but like instead of from Florida, the kid, the lefty, power hitter when we need offense. And now it's like that kind of defeated the whole point, because the only way I was rationalizing them drafting Hagen Smith was being like, okay, like we'll just get offense in the Garrett Crochet trade, you know, like we'll just get bats in that. If we get this young dude, he'll be good and fine by the time that all these other prospects are developed. Like it seemed perfect in my mind, but I guess I was being too smart or too logical, because, you know, like it just seems like it's just nobody's thinking about anything, and I think that's my main problem. But
so with the few minutes that we have remaining, does anybody have any thoughts about the trades, the Fedde deal, or any of that stuff?
They're not special. Like,
yeah,
they lost me as soon as when I read the full trade that we also paid money to the Cardinals. What the hell? Like, are you kidding me? I mean, Eric Fedde was probably one of the top free agent pitchers that was available. The White Sox, I will give them the smallest amount of credit, a pin needle of credit that they signed him, and that was a good signing, and he panned out really well. And like, there's, you know, just because we got anything in return is just why didn't we try to be more strategic with that? I'm sure they were asking for too much across the board and are not good at negotiating, and that's what happened at the same time. But like, well, we got 3 prospects, like no one is like that big of a name, and we just got rid of like our top starter next to Crochet. And it just like, they should have gotten more for that. And also dealing Kopech away. Like, the fact that there is not that much return there, like, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like, we paid money too in the end, which is like so dumb.
Yeah, they definitely shot themselves in the foot with that. You know, it's like you think they're doing something good. Oh, you can make a big free agent signing with Fedde, you do something right, and then you don't capitalize off of it. It's like, well, what was the point of it? Like, you just you could have gotten so much more and like did it in a cheap way that this organization loves, and not have to go out and spend the money and get it. You know, a small signing turns into a big return. But no, you don't. You just, you know, say, oh well, we didn't get him for much in the first place, so like we don't need much. Like, that's not how you get good. Like, it's not how. So it is just
That's why I have no hope for Crochet. Like, they deal Crochet out. I mean, you know, they were asking for way too much, I'm sure, but like,
yeah, I am not very plugged into like the minor league system, like in terms of like prospects and stuff. And so when it comes, and also like, I feel like every website you look at, there's a different list of like who is where on what list. And so I have a hard time like taking trades. Like I take them at face value, I guess, in the sense of like, okay, like what did we get in return? And like, I don't know, the haul didn't really feel that great. And also then like going on Twitter and seeing like the talk around like when the Orioles made that trade for Trevor Rogers and seeing the haul and like everyone's commentary about like, oh, the White Sox got fleeced because like the Orioles were willing to give up so much for someone who's like not even as good as Fetty was. Like that's where then I'm like, okay, like we probably, like I already knew we probably did something wrong, but like that just solidified to me that like if the Orioles were willing to give up what they gave up based on like what people were saying online, then like surely we should have been able to get some better returns.
Today I saw a clip from Foul Territory, and the writer for The Athletic that writes about the Twins was saying, I mean, again, we don't know if it's true or not, but he was saying that the Twins actually put together a much better deal for the White Sox for Fetty, and the White Sox wouldn't do it because it's the Twins and it's within the division. And we would have
competing with the Twins right now for an AL Central title. Like what the?
I know.
Like we're like 100 games out of first place. Just give them what they want.
Yeah, I'm not surprised when I see stuff like that. It's just like that's how this organization is. They've proved that. They've proved that they're not serious, and that is the prime example. You can tell and show people when you tell them this organization isn't serious. It's like, how are we 5? Like, are we children? Like this is a major league level professional baseball business, and you're going to make some little stupid petty remark like that and genuinely turn down better players because of some stupid thing within the division, and it's not even like they're our main rival. It's like, what?
Which makes you wonder, was Chris Getz being the puppet of, who is making that call? Because is Chris Getz really going to be like, no, I'm not trading within the division? No, I don't know.
He did say it, and like when he was asked, he said like we didn't want to trade within the division. But it's like why? Because we're going to be bad for more than 1 year, and they're fine. Like they're going to be at least average to good and or winning. So like let it happen. Let them duke it out. Like we're not involved. Like we're literally not involved in anything. The White Sox are literally just there on everyone's schedule as a formality at this point. Like they have to play it to get all the freaking games in, but those games are pointless.
Not for them. They're getting free wins.
Well, they're getting free wins. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Everybody's get right team.
They're all patting.
You get a win. You get a win.
The Royals just probably enjoyed that series because they're in the wild card hunt. That's exactly what they needed. 3 easy wins.
And like my fantasy strategy for baseball this year has basically been to pick up people that are playing at the White Sox. And like Vinny Pasquantino just got me so many points the last 3 days. So like W, I guess, on that front.
Oh, all right, ladies. It's felt good. The bitching session felt so good.
Session.
Yeah, for real. I've held that in for like 2 months.
So we're going to have to definitely make sure it's not another month goes by without it, for sure. So yes, thank you so much for carving out some time to come together and talk about all this stuff from a lady's perspective. And we'll be back before you know it, folks. Thanks for tuning in.